This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. It is ICAST week, which is where a lot of companies in the industry debut their new products for the upcoming year. And I'm not going to ICAST this year for the first year in probably 12 to 15 years. I may have missed one or two in between there. But anyway, it's in Orlando, Florida. It used to be in Las Vegas, which was a lot more exciting because there was always a few people who didn't show up the next day when it was in Vegas. Then they lost their job and they're like, hey, did you hear about like Jim over at XYZ Bait Company? Oh yeah, he was on a bender at the Excalibur last night, and then he rolls into ICAST at like 1 p.m. You knew it was going to be his last ICAST. But Orlando's cool. I found a pearl in an oyster at a Orlando oyster bar one time at ICAST. That's a true story, Charlie Hartley. I saw the look on your face there. What's up, Charlie?
What are you doing in an oyster bar at ICAST?
It was back when I was repping Pure Fishing for Blue Heron Communications. So part of our job was to woo the media, so to speak. So we were out with guys from Field and Stream and In Fisherman at the time and all that. So part of that involved going to the oyster bar.
First of all, it's an honor to be on Bass Talk Live. Thank you for inviting me. And did you just drink chocolate milk? Because there's a little brown residue on your upper lip there.
Oh, yeah. No, that's I haven't seen Court in a couple of days, and then I was lazy and hadn't shaved. So, okay, I'm going to be dead honest with this. So I'm in a pickle. I need your advice, Charlie. Are you willing to give me your advice here?
Absolutely. Right. I'll be honest.
So last year, I wouldn't say I was in like a little bit of a slump, but like I needed to catch him in that regional on Champlain. And there's just something about just a dirty, grimy mustache or goatee or something that up there, like when you're kind of in the wilderness up north. So I'm calling it my Smalley stash. So last year I did it. If you can actually go back, I've got pictures, and I went 4th and 9th. I was top 5 in the Bass Nation Regional, top 10 the Bassmaster Open, back-to-back weeks, right? So this year, I'm like, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I got it. All comes down. All the marbles are out. What is that saying? It's not all the marbles are on the table, is it?
Close enough. All the chips are on the table.
There it is. Marbles don't like to stay on the table. They tend to roll. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So I get this thing nicely curated. I've got it out. And then Court was not like elated with our first set of engagement picks, which I agree there were some odd choices that were thrown in there. So she books a second one at the end of the month. However, even at 40, my facial hair game is not strong. Like, I'm just not a furry guy. And so it takes me, like, I mean, this has to be, that's a concerted effort. We're talking multiple months. So the options are, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
So I finally have the Smalley stash, and it's like every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, got to get ready for the Smalley derbs. But I also don't want my engagement pictures to be me with this thing on my upper lip. And I'm not sure she's going to let me. So I'm not sure, like, how do I get through the pictures, but also maintain the Smalley stash mojo, Charlie? You've been married a long time. I need some advice.
You read my mind. You will be reminded of that for 30 years. I took my wife fishing on our honeymoon, and I've never heard the end of that. So be very careful what you do early in your marriage, because they have memories like an elephant, and they will bring it up every time in public. Guess where he took me on my honeymoon? Look what he tried to do in these engagement photos.
But
I've seen 16-year-olds with better mustaches.
but listen to this though. Would a better gift not be starting our lives out together? A $50,000 Bassmaster Open win, launching my career into the stratosphere, and also giving me a spot in the Bassmaster Classic with the potential of becoming an icon of the sport with a W in the Bassmaster Classic. And if you want to go back to the roots of it, it would be the dirty mustache. So I'm really thinking of the future by keeping it.
I'm concerned that you believe that mustache has anything to do with your smallmouth success. Is that how teetering your confidence is right now? I
no
do
comment.
I promise the fish will not know if that mustache is there or not, unless you're going to tie short strands of it and run it through your grub and make a fuzzy grub.
Speaking of which, I don't know. I know you're not the biggest social media guy, but have you seen the assault of the dice?
Yes,
Every single company now.
I even saw Hackney holding one up in a picture. I believe he fished.
Oh, you know that had to hurt him so bad.
At the MPFL at St. Lawrence, and I Instagrammed him. I said, "No, you didn't. Please tell me you didn't do that." So yeah, I've seen the fuzzy grub, and it looks like we're going to see fuzzy nerds. We're going to see fuzzy worms. We're going to see a bunch of fuzz this year at ICAST, and not tooting my own horn, but we were doing that 30 years ago, running living rubber through worms and through jig trailers. Yeah, that's not new. And I have heard those fuzzy dice compared to a jig, the action of a jig, which is understandable. It makes it a little more understandable why a fish would eat that thing when you explain it to me that way. But as we know, bass will eat anything. They're curious. Sometimes I think they eat something different just because it's different. So they'll if you fish with it and you're around fish, you'll catch fish on anything.
I mean, I've caught them, but I caught them. So I had a co-angler that left a couple in the boat last year, and then I went to I forgot I went to Canada after. I was 3 for 3. I had like a 19-day streak of 20-pound limits. It was awesome. On like 7 different fisheries. Yeah, I might have to keep this thing. It does feel a little odd when it touches the microphone, though. Anyway,
that's not all that it's going to touch and feel.
Easy, Charlie. Family show.
I mean, giving her a kiss. I mean, giving her a kiss.
Yeah. So I have caught him on the dice. I got him. These dice are actually from Japan. But the guy who left him in the boat, like I was up in Canada when it was like a school of fish that literally they were trying to see who could be the first thing that hits the thing on the surface. So I don't feel like that counts. What I'm really interested in is this.
Oh, I saw that. That's too big. That's too big.
Big, dude.
When we were at Clark's Hill, that fancy tackle store right at the ramp,
it's that big. It's literally like the size of, I mean, the thing is massive.
You'll need a big hook, a really big hook.
Yeah. Not for smallmouth, but for the largemouth. But anyway, with the ICAST deal, I was thinking there's not a better person in the game to just talk about getting excited over new lures. Not the bizarre lures, not maybe the best lures, not the worst lures, but there's just, at least in my mind, I have this little wormhole of like the first time you actually lay eyes, and it's easier now with the internet and overnight shipping and everything. You can pretty much have everything to your door. But the first time you lay eyes on a lure that you've heard about, but you haven't seen, and you have all sorts of high expectations for it. And that typically happens a lot at ICAST.
Yep, I've been around a little longer than you, even pre, of course, internet. And we were exposed to things in the magazines. You know, I had subscriptions to every fishing magazine you could get. And in the back, there'd be ads or pictures of lures that, I got to order one of those. I got to order one of those. And it was never what it seemed in the picture or what they said it would do. And one that sticks out in my head, and I tried to Google it before we got on and I couldn't find it, but you're awful good at that stuff. It was called the Hydrilla Gorilla, but when I Google it, I get everything but it. It's not a buzz bait. It was almost like a snagless Sally, but around the hook was a bunch of rubber, almost looked like salmon eggs that the treble hooks were engrossed with. So it kept the hydrilla from getting on, but it also kept a fish from getting hooked also.
Oh, I understand. They were saying, hey, we're going to use this so that it's weedless, but they didn't make it weedless but fishable.
Yep. And then, of course, when I was young, the color selector was the coolest thing. And every lure brand came out with a set of color selector colored lures that all corresponded to the colors on the color selector. And back in the day, my favorite color was a dark army green. And that color selector had a dark army green, really dull. Well, that was
I've never heard that before, Charlie.
That was before green pumpkin and
dark
before
army
watermelon.
green and green pumpkin, I guess. Yeah. Because wasn't green pumpkin a Zoom color that was created by accident?
Yep.
So you're talking about even before that. They
mixed pumpkin and watermelon together by mistake and got kind of a green pumpkin. But prior to that, I fished, we didn't have green pumpkin or watermelon. Those were not colors that were available. And I tied all my own living rubber jigs, and I always did a dark green. There was a dark green Uncle Josh pork rind. I don't have the dark green with me, but I got the good old giant jar of Uncle Josh, which I can't move the right direction.
Wait a second. You're at Sign Cobb making deals. You sent me a couple pictures. Signs are looking top notch, 10 out of 10, Charlie.
Thank you.
And you're in the office and you've got a can of Uncle Josh pork rinds. And I know you didn't plan on bringing that.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you did.
And then, of course, Strike King came out with their own pork rinds, and they had glitter in them.
I've never seen that.
Yeah,
the bow leech with diamond dust. You just put those on a jig?
Oh, absolutely. We'll just put those on a jig. You're so young. The jig and pig was the bait. I weighed big bass in so many tournaments on the jig and pig, and the pig was an Uncle Josh pork rind. And your options were different size frogs, the number 1, the number 11, and the 101, which was real small. And there was even a Big Daddy, which was a huge trailer. And then my favorites were the spring lizards and the water dogs. They were kind of shaped like a little skin diver. They had 2 arms and 2 legs, and they made the best jig trailer ever. My personal big bass in 1111 at Santee Cooper was on one of my hand-tied black and green jigs with a Uncle Josh spring lizard pup behind it. And it made the most beautiful glob when you flipped it. It was a huge profile. And back then we had I thought this was a cool thing that would be at ICAST, a juice jug. You remember the juice jug? It looked
Never heard of them, Charlie.
Oh gosh, you got to look that up. It looked like a spittoon, and it sat on the front deck. The bottom was weighted, and you filled it up with fish formula. And every 3 flips, you dipped your jig in it so that it had fresh scent on it and glitter. And when you'd flip that thing in the water, it looked like gasoline coming up. And sometimes, because it was so much of it on there, sometimes you could tell you were getting bit because the gasoline trail would start moving before you felt the bite.
I have never. What was it called?
The juice jug, the Uncle Josh juice jug. It even had the top was concaved in like a toilet so that it didn't splash out when you ran down the lake. And we would mix up all kinds of concoctions in there, not just fish formula. We'd mix all kinds of things in there, trying to create our own scents. And the same thing with the pork rind. We used to soak pork rinds and marinate them in some of the nastiest stuff. And, if pork rinds are not kept in the brine that they're shipped to you in, they will go rancid. And sometimes we'd mix the wrong stuff in there, and you'd get in that jar a year later, and you'd have to run out of the house. I mean, it would go bad.
Chuck Smith says, if I come home covered in glitter, I'm in deep crap.
Well, that used to be.
Especially if you then try to tell her that diamond dust is the one that gave it to you.
I can relate to that. Yes, sir. But,
I have never heard of that. I've found you have mentioned 3 or 4 things that that I cannot find on the internet either.
That's a shame, because I think I could find my juice jug if I'd have had more time.
Was this a thing that all the guys had like mounted onto their front deck? So like you'd flip, dip. And instead of taking it and applying it, Uncle Josh was like, well, what if we just had it to where you could just dunk and go? Yeah.
And it may have been made by Fish Formula, the company that made the fluid you filled it with, so that you'd use more fish formula, because you'd almost pour a whole bottle in there and you'd go through a bottle a day. But back then I swore by scent. I swore that gave me an advantage. And I weighed big bass in so many local tournaments every year on a jig and pig. And I mean the real pig. The problem with pork rind is it would flip over the hook and it cover your hook point, and your hook couldn't come through it. It was so tough. And that's why Zoom came out with the plastic pork rind. And at first I was not convinced in the plastic pork rind. If it wasn't real pork, it didn't have the action. There was something about that action of real meat or leather. Yep. There was something about the buoyancy of it. But you would lose some fish. And what we would do is we'd run a piece of plastic up our hook shank first to try to keep that pork down on the bend of the hook so it wouldn't slide up. But the neat thing about the Zoom pork chunks were the colors. You know, you couldn't produce colors in the pork rinds that Zoom could. And I tell you a cool story about that Zoom pork chunk. They were having troubles with the legs getting bit off or falling off. And they were about to modify the mold, and Mickey Bruce, if you can recall that name, a bass pro that was very successful. He was friends and lived near the Zoom plant, and he told him to take that mold and just cut 2 45 gussets in that mold where the legs met, and that's still on those pork chunks now, and that's what kept those legs attached, and they didn't have to get rid of the mold or change the whole molding for it. So it's amazing how little things like that change it. But then I really got hooked on the Zoom pork chunk. What is their big one called? There's Mickey Bruce. He won the first $100,000 super bass tournament on Lake Lanier, and I had the honor of rooming with him for years and fishing with him. We used to rent houses together. He was a heck of a fisherman. Not much of a people person, but a heck of a fisherman.
All right, back to Zoom.
Yeah, back to Zoom. Yep. But yeah, that's my pork chunk. But let's talk about some other cool things.
While we're doing that, LP Bass wants to know if you had the Hook Honer electric hook shark.
Absolutely, and it did a terrible job on your hook.
I've never heard of that either.
It spun around in a circle, battery operated, and you would wear the points right off your hooks because it was like putting it in a pencil sharpener for way too long.
Really?
Yeah. That's funny.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, you're going to have troubles bringing up anything that I'm not familiar with. I've been around a long time, and Ohio has an unbelievable history in bass fishing and lure designing. You'd be surprised how many lure manufacturers originated from Ohio. You know, Fred Arbogast, cream worms, a bunch of them.
CCRR said that Zoom, was that called the Big Salty Chunk?
Yeah, Big Salty Chunk. And the color was flippin' blue. That color was amazing. Ask Denny Brower or any of them. There was a lot of money won on that big chunk in flippin' blue. It's kind of a bright, reflex, translucent blue.
Yeah. Holy cow. I also think I've got a color selector up there somewhere. Would you compare?
I still got one. And,
would you compare the color selector, which interestingly, both Dr. Lauren Hill productions, the color selector and the hydro wave, which early iterations where the hills were involved, it was called Biosonics before they sold it. Involved a box with stuff that leaked out in it.
I think he used to promote a pH thing also. You'd lower down and check the acidity of the water. He was way ahead of his time and very scientific. And Kenyon, had that knowledge from him when he was a little kid. But that guy put a bunch of stuff out there. His dad was really well known for stuff like that. I think he was a professor in fisheries
at OU, I think.
Yeah.
But I would compare the color selector. Like, I would just imagine, I wasn't around when the color selector first came out, to the hydro wave, to where there was like a mixture of FOMO, a mixture of science, a mixture of what can it hurt. And I just like there's some people that probably still swear by the color selector. I still know a couple guys who swear by the hydro wave, but it used to be you couldn't fish for 5 years without having a hydro wave on. I'm sure it would be like the same thing back in the day. You wouldn't go fishing without dropping the old selector down there to see what color you needed to have on your worm.
That's right. And Matt, I mean, I'm old enough. We didn't have temperature gauges on our electronics. We used to drop a temperature deal down
an actual little glass tube.
I'll tell you a better one. Sears and Roebuck used to have a thing that looked like you were a plastic tube with a light in it, and it was on an electrical cord, and you could open it up and put fish food in it or a minnow, and it lit up, and you lowered it down to attract fish under you. It lit up, dispersed fish food, and it had a minnow swimming around in it. So you just, whenever you stopped at a spot, you lowered it down there, kind of chum the hole with it.
I mean, I guess they kind of do that. I'm obsessed with watching pike. I watch a lot of ice fishing. I'll just say that this way, even though I don't ever do it. I've done it like 3 times. But have you seen where they take that saw and they cut the big block out of the ice, and then they put the tent over it, and then it basically makes the ice glow in there, and then they have the big fake things and big live suckers, and they put them down there just so they could spear the pike.
Oh yeah, they call them in with decoys. I've got some of the decoys. They make decoys that you jig up and down, and they'd swim, and they didn't have hooks on them. You were just trying to bring them in close enough to hit them with a pitch. I mean,
it's really brutal. Really brutal.
I've seen it in action.
It's like this pike's like, oh, what is that? Boom, pitchfork right in the back of the head.
Way back in the day, there weren't famous Bass Pros, and Sears and Roebuck, which was the big department store back there, had a small fishing department, which was actually a huge fishing department because we didn't have fishing tackle stores. And their pro was Ted Williams. Ted Williams was an ex-baseball player, I believe, that became a sport fisherman, and they had Ted Williams' name on everything, rods, lines. I think his name was on that fish attractor you'd lower in the water. And before Bass Pro Shop catalogs, we'd get the Sears and Roebuck's catalog, and most of the kids were excited because the toys were in it for Christmas. And I'd go to the fishing section, of course, and there'd be a rod or a reel you could order. And that's how long ago, prior to the Roland Martin signature lures. Oh, the Snagless Sally, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's still effective in Florida. And Scott Martin's mom, that's her favorite bait. The purple Snagless Sally is a Florida killer.
Really? Would you put the Uncle Josh on the back of that?
Yeah, and we'd also put Uncle Josh behind our Johnson Silver minnows. One of my biggest bass, we used to fish topwater spoons called a Strike King timber spoon. And it was a beautiful spoon. And I'd hook that spring lizard pup behind it. And when you swam it over a grass bed, it looked like a little scuba diver behind it. And you'd kill it at the end of that grass bed. And we used to catch giants on that way before braid, So
a Snagless Sally is just a
spinner bait. It's an inline spinner with a weed guard, more or less, and a rubber skirt. Yeah, it doesn't look like much, does it?
But that sucker looks like a golden shiner to those Florida bass.
Yep. Yeah.
Now I had I believe it was Maynard. Have not heard from him in a while.
Yep.
Who sent me these? Hold on.
I remember. I watch all your shows.
Yeah. So the Snagless Sally.
Yep. Oh yeah,
Buzz
that's
bait.
the Uncle Buck's
Buzzbait version. Uncle
That
Buck's
might be
buzzer.
the Uncle Buck's.
It's OG.
Yeah.
That's good,
Bass Pro Shop had a inline buzz bait like that for years called the Uncle Buck buzzer, because Uncle Buck was like one of their old timers that would design goofy old lures.
I have Uncle Buck's fish batter.
Yep. Here's a really good one. I didn't mean to get historical.
Oh, I love it.
These are the original Billy Westmoreland bass magnets. And I used to slaughter them on this. They're basically a backup crawdad crankbait. Profile is unbelievable.
Holy cow! That was very few. What are those? 70s, 80s, 90s?
So, but yeah, I made the Ohio State team and the regional state. Look at that thing, man.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I mean, that looks like a pretty modern lure.
Yeah.
And they were killer. I caught so many fish on them. Another unique thing that would be an ICAST thing is the front runner. Remember the front runner?
Dude, I've got a autographed front runner hat. Is it the guy who invented it, Doyle Hogan or something?
Yep, Doyle Hodges. You know, he also invented that net that had a handle on it and a arm grip, so you could use it in one hand. It had a thing that came out that you could grab so you could net with one hand. And it wrapped around your arm here, and then halfway down it had a 90-degree thing so you could actually net with one hand so while you were fighting your fish. He invented that, and he also was famous. He found one of the original Ranger boats and totally restored it. He was a really neat guy. He had one of the very original Ranger boats totally redone, like it looked like the day you bought it. Yeah, that's neat that you knew who that was.
Yeah, that was a big thing for a while. And back then, the front runner was 100% legal in Bassmaster competition.
Right, and that's why they're not my
guys
box
that would
anymore.
throw it.
Yeah, you were not allowed to throw them anymore. And here's another one. When the umbrella rig got popular and it got
2011
illegal, Mans came out with this to try to still stay legal.
Dude, I remember that.
Yeah, the 3-for-all.
Dude, I remember that. So
that did not take off at all. That did not take off.
So that's just a jig head in the middle. Hold that up again for those that don't. That's a jig head in the middle. And then you have like some clear rubber.
Yeah.
That is welded into 2 other baits. So you have like 3 fluke style swim baits.
Yeah. And then there's some spares down on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was their attempt to get around the one hook only.
And here's a really cool one. This would be an ICAST. And I think I bought it because I thought this has to catch them. And I'm not sure I've had it out of the box. Wait till you see this thing.
Oh, dude, that was one of the last things that Patrick Sebile actually did. And I think that was right when Pure Fishing maybe took over Sebile.
Yeah.
And it's a jigging spoon, the Patrick Sebile jigging spoon called the Spin Shad.
Yeah.
That front half of it, you could modify that, Charlie. You can take the that big floppy blade off the back and put a small Colorado blade on and modify it to where it is one of the best rip baits like that on the market.
Yeah.
I have several in my box right now. But as in that iteration, I never figured out how that one could catch fish.
And here's one I had to grab just because I thought, man, they'll eat this too.
Yep. The wax wing.
See the plastic wing on it?
Yep. They were trying to take that from the saltwater world and bring that over to the freshwater world, and it didn't work very well.
And this is supposed to be a killer big bass bait here. Can you see it? Nope.
What is that?
I'm going to pull it out. It's made by Daiwa. Boy, back in the day, dude, before Japanese lures, we would get Daiwa lures. Daiwa made a jerk bait and a rattle trap bait, the TD Sensation. that were killer, and you could only get them, they didn't make them in America. Look at this thing. Okay.
So
and look at the back. Look at the back.
Oh, that's a buzzbait blade.
Out of the box, dude. And it kind of runs on its side.
Don't hook yourself on TV.
Watch me, I will.
How did that even get like that?
Now, it won't come out of there. But it's triple jointed. Has a bill. I can't ever get in front of the camera.
You're perfect. Yeah, it's just like backing up a trailer. So it's like a trout on its side. It's like a jointed, hard, it's like a 4-jointed trout swim bait, except it's on its side with a square bill.
Runs like a wake bait with a buzz bait behind. No joke.
That sounds like that sounds like you would lose it to a giant pike or muskie so fast, Charlie.
Look at
the Dead or Alive Junior.
What a name.
What is it? What does it say underneath the name of it? How do they describe it?
Wow. Marvelous jointed wood bait for exciting surface game. But you're better at English. What's that word? What's that first word? Oh, wrong way again.
Marvelous?
That's what I said. Good. I thought it was me. You don't know it either.
Heck?
By the way, I meant to compliment you before we get too far. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and unfortunately, sometimes you guys have the same guest on the same week. So there's an unbelievable comparison and contrast to interviewing styles. And Matt, I'm not stroking you. Your communication skills and your English skills and your humor have served you so well because you know when to let the guests talk and when to listen. And other interviewers too often pretend they're the star and want to tell a better story than the guest. And you respect the fact that your guest is the star of the show. And I don't mean me. I mean when you have Drew Cook on or
You're
someone
the star
who
of the show.
And you let them speak. You let them finish their sentences. You don't try to one-up them. That interview with Drew Cook yesterday was fantastic. You could tell how comfortable he was. He runs in the boat, grabs baits he shouldn't be showing off. He's telling us the real stuff.
Come on, Charlie.
Your other guest that was at Bacharach even complimented you.
Come on, Charlie.
Matt, you have.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have the skills that you're very knowledgeable of the game and how it's played and the nuances and the competition. And you do a great job. Bass Talk Live is my favorite podcast. I just hate it that you travel so much.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to get some stuff so we can do it on the road. Okay. 1 second before we go on to, that one was a good one. And they just brought it back too. This is marvelous. No, that's it changes it. I don't know what marvelous means. How does it spelled on there? Get that package again. We're gonna
Marverous. I wonder if it means on its side. I wonder if it means like on its side or lumbering or something.
There is no word. I'm not kidding. Like,
I believe you.
I think you think that's just an ill-fated attempt at marvelous.
You pointed it out. I'd never read that.
Huh. All right, what else you got? You had the king shad there.
Yeah, and this was Kevin Van Dam gave me this one the first time we went to California. It was amazing. When we went to California the first time, way back, Kevin flew in late. His boat and truck were already there, of course, and he ended up being at a cabin, 2 cabins down, and I'm hanging on the gunnel of his boat, driving him crazy, watching everything. And he just starts throwing baits out. He goes, Hartley, I'm going to throw these out if you don't want them. I mean, handfuls of bait. And like prototype before the thunder cricket, before the pure poison, no skirts on them, different colors, just bags of them. And I go, Kevin, I'm not here to take your baits. He goes, I'm gonna put them in the trash. So all right, Kevin, all right. But he gave me one of the baits I got was this, and a couple.
Is that the
of
wake version or the diving version?
Yeah.
Is that the wake or the diving? That's the diving.
In the know, they said, Hartley, that's a good bait. He gave you something really worth having it. And this thing makes an incredible noise. And it's probably it's kind of like a wake bait, but with a bill. Or not a wake bait. It's almost like what's the big
swim bait?
Glide baits, the big glide baits, but it's a little glide bait with a bill. But
it's called the King Shad, and for a long time, I remember when those came out. It's one of the few baits that works with an all plastic joint. So if you look at that joint, in it, it's an all plastic joint. Went away for a number of years, especially the wake version became a cultish bait that was not really talked about because you couldn't get them. But during the shad spawn, it was a phenomenal option. And then Strike King recently, I believe this year or last year, are bringing that bait back. But in that iteration, in that OG sexy shad color right there, that's a 12 to 15-year-old bait that there's not many in existence of.
It makes a unique clicking noise when it's being fished. It clicks in the water. It really does.
As well, also one of the few that you could actually, when you got it right, you could reel it at a decent pace without it blowing out. Any of the other bigger ones, for some reason, I think because the body and mass is so much bigger than the blade, they'd roll out and spin out. That one wouldn't.
Do you need a break, or can you want to go on something else?
Keep going.
Do you remember the Bagley small fry series? The most realistic Bagley baits I've ever seen. They had a bluegill, a crappie, a shad, a bass.
Yes.
I had to buy all those, and I think you could order the whole set out of Field and Stream or in Fisherman, and I had the whole set. I mean, I got them in a box, every one of them. And the only one that really produced, they were all beautiful, but the shad, they had a shad that was unreal. It looked so much like a shad with the glitter and the colors, and it had a shallow bill. They may have added a deeper bill, but during the walleye run, fishing off the rocks, I mean, that was a killer. Before that, it was the thin silver shad, which was made by Storm. And that small fry shad, that's it. Yep, you can still get them. A $98. Holy mackerel.
$100.
Yeah, that's unreal. That doesn't do it justice through the plastic there. Yeah, I had the whole set. The bluegill actually looked like a bluegill. I mean, the shape of the balsa had the back fin, and it was amazing, the colors. Like you could see every scale. And they were just incredibly realistic, way before, when other lures were just two colors or something. They were so far ahead of their time.
These is there's a bunch. This is the one that I'm used to.
Yep.
That one right there.
Yeah, they were incredible.
Bagley small fry bluegill. I was always so when I didn't really understand ICAST or whatever back in the day, right? So talking 12, 13, 14 years old in central Illinois. I was I remember I was really pumped when and this was a little bit later, but to get my first look at the man bear pig from Reaction Innovations. Now, originally it was the Sweet Beaver. We were down in central Illinois. I don't know if I've told this story before or not, Charlie, but we had seen it. My buddy Darren and I, well, he wasn't my buddy at the time. He was taking ADD kid fishing. That was the charity case. Became buddies. He's like mid 50s, right? So he's got a few years on me. So you know how it is. Now we're like friends, but at the time, like, I mean, I was probably like going fishing with a golden retriever.
Absolutely.
Labrador that just drank a Red Bull. But we had both seen in Bassmaster the Reaction Innovation Sweet Beaver. And I mean, it was a wild, novel concept at the time.
Yep.
And we were down in Southern Illinois at one of the tackle stores in Southern Illinois, and we walked in, and there they are in the black and purple packaging with the scantily clad woman on it, and it said Sweet Beaver Reaction Innovations, and it was like, oh, like vivid. I mean, I was young. I don't know what year Sweet Beaver came out.
First time I ever saw one, believe it or not, Guido and Dion Hibden, and probably one of the kids, Dion was complaining that one of the kids had them behind them, and they were flipping their Guido bugs and everything, and the kid was catching them behind them, and he finally said, "What the heck have you got back there?" And he goes, "A Sweet Beaver," and they were showing it to me. Look at this thing, Charlie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a huge innovation, because everything else was a plastic worm or a creature bait. And you know, until everyone was flipping them, you were flipping something different. With
2002, so that tracks. Yeah, that's right about when I had been 17 years old. 84, 94, 2000. Yeah, I'd have been 17 years old.
One you mentioned before we got on air was the hard-nosed worm. Tell us
the Man's hard-nosed plastics. I was all in on that. I was like, it is finally time for a company to understand like how to put a harder head on here, so you're not constantly ripping through baits. Unfortunately, it seemed like they just hard-nosed the whole bait at times, or the head would separate or things like that. But I'm surprised no one has actually like mastered that concept of a different plastic compound in the first quarter inch of the bait.
Man's was super innovative back in the day. They had a worm prior to that was I want to say they called it the U-tail, but I don't think the worm was the shape of a U. It had a 90-degree bend in the middle, and they actually had a color that was like zebra. It was black and white striped. It was the craziest looking thing you'd ever seen. And I just had to buy one because I'm like, look at that. I've never seen a worm that was before laminated worms. And this thing had more of a zebra pattern than laminated top and bottom. And that worm was really unique. You know, way back, the only worms available were the jelly worm. I mean, other than pre-rigged worms or a cream worm. The Man's jelly worm, black with a chartreuse tail or brown with an orange tail, curly tail, was like the go-to.
Was that the same time as the LaRue Craw, or was that even before?
Oh, way before the
really?
Way before the LaRue Craw. Yeah, I had hundreds of bags of the black blue Jean LaRue salt craw 4-inch. That was my number one killer. I'd take that down to Santee Cooper and flip it in those cypress trees. That was the only thing that got me away from the jig, was the Jean LaRue salt craw. That was, I mean, that thing would still catch fish, and it's just a flat, ugly looking thing, but man, it would catch them. It would super catch them. I'd catch the snot out of them on that. How about, this is a Bagley's Fat Cat. Do you remember the Fat Cat?
I have never heard of that, and that is a tadpole looking bait if I've ever seen. It says Bagley's Fat Cat right on the top. No, I've never seen that, Charlie.
Then they came out with the Fat Mama.
I've not heard of that entire series.
Oh, yeah. That was a killer. It almost reminds me of those Zoom crankbaits that Ed Hand carved, just because
the WECs.
They're so bulbous. They would fight their way to the surface. They wanted to float like a bobber.
Do you remember the Madman Mooneyham craws? That one you got me. That would probably be the first bait that that we looked at, had some hype around it in Central Illinois, and it was an ultra real. It was a remember, the ultra realistic craw that Yum has.
Yep.
Like, it's got the hollow body and the chamber and the tooth. That's it. That's the Madman Mooneyham craw, and it came out in the early 2000s. And these are the key features: hollow bodied tube, which was, Denny Brower kind of brought that tube in 1998 when he won on High Rock. So this is just a couple years later. So flipping a tube was the craze then, and there weren't that many tubes on the market that were 4 inches that you could put, an EWG hook in. And then, Shaw Grigsby came out with was that the Eagle Claw tube hook?
Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of them with the little snap on the front.
Oh yeah.
That's what Guido and Dion fished. That's what they all fished with.
Really? I would take the clip off of that and put it on a 5/0 straight shank and then fish my 10-inch worms with just that clip. Because that clip was awesome.
First time I ever sight fished, I drew out with Dion Hibden when I'll bet he was 18 and I was about 20. And he had his dad's boat. We were in a Bassmasters at Santee Cooper, and he caught every one of his bedfish with that hook in his brand new tricolored tube. He had a tricolored tube. It was beautiful. I still have a big box of them that his kid made up for me. And then we're talking about soft plastics. Do you remember Riverside made a lizard and a craw that had oversized pinchers, and the lizard had feet. The lizard had toes on the feet.
Yes.
It was so realistic.
Yes, I 100% remember that. Let me show you real quick, just so people know what we're talking about there. There is the Madman.
Yeah. Okay, I have seen that package. Yep, I've seen that package.
And they're just, I mean, they're just, that's what they were. Yep. They were the most fish-losing bait you could ever put onto your line, because what would happen is, I mean, it's a lot of plastic there, Charlie. So like you would you jam your big glass rattle up in there. And then you had just a big hunk of plastic right here, and then another big hunk here. So you ended up like with your hook kind of through the horns up there. You had absolutely zero gap for penetration.
Yep.
You had no way to hook them for like 3 years. It would just be whack crap.
We used to put glass rattles in all the worms, and they really cost you fish because they were right in between the hook point and the eye, and it filled the gap. That damn rattle would cost you so many fish.
Yeah, the Riverside plastics, I have not. Holy cow, that's been forever since I've heard that. I'm trying to find a picture of that.
Those the pinchers on their crayfish look similar to that Madman you just showed. They were way oversized, and for a while, there were people making crayfish that you put bubble-shaped rattles in the pinchers, and they made the pinchers float up. You remember those?
100%. So here's the other thing one of the things that I remember an ICAST release was, so little known fact about me, Charlie, back in the day, I actually enjoyed Carolina rigging. Especially when I first. And do you remember the foam bullet weights?
Oh yeah,
you would peg above your plastic, and it would make your entire.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever use those? Did they ever work?
I never used them. But I own some. I think I got some in a variety pack of something, or I ordered something, and I own some, but I never fished with them.
So you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah. And some of the magazines, I got some of my first Western weenie worms. They weren't real Westies, but some of those first weenie translucent worms, and they'd even have like a spider jig out of rubber that you put between your worm and the slip sinker. And they look terrible. I mean, but they didn't have the ability to make plastic molds like we do now. But I can remember ordering a big assortment kit of that out of the back of a magazine, and I never used any of it, but it was so neat when I got it.
I got one more for you, and this is probably the most recent one, but it kind of came about at a time perfect. It was like social media was coming up. ICAST was still massive. So like you could use the social media, but then you still couldn't see it until ICAST. And I got a bunch of them. And it never occurred to me, like there's literally no reason for me to have these because I don't fish. The Spro King Daddy.
Oh,
the King Daddy frog. Oh, I had visions of grandeur of chucking this squirrel-sized,
tennis shoe-sized
frog up in the mats and just watching 8-pounders wallow out of Lake. You know what I mean? And then I actually got it, and I was like, okay, well, this is what is that?
That's an old frog there.
What frog is that?
I wish I could tell you.
Hold that up. Someone will know what frog that is. It's got two little twin tails coming out of the bottom. Do you throw that frog, Charlie?
I have.
Oh,
you know who probably gave that to me 20 years ago? Fred Robanis.
Really?
Because he was experimenting with all different kinds of frogs. He
had the Furbit and all that.
The Furby. He gave me Furbies that had a little spinner behind them. Yeah, I think he gave me that. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't give me that.
So I'm looking for it. I've got it somewhere around here. Has anyone ever approached you about a reintroduction of the torpedo?
No, but I've dreamt of it. I always wanted to make one with a titanium prop so it would hold its shape and not bend and not need tuned, because I'm constantly tuning that prop on them. And I always thought if I got the chance to make one, and I've even experimented with painting the props different colors, black, chartreuse, and accent colors on the prop itself. I've done that before. But no one's, I've never reached the height of success that anyone ever wanted a Charlie Hartley signature.
Oh, that's not true. Is there?
Oh no, that's true.
Is there anybody else that you know of who relies on that bait still in game time situations?
I've had more than one person in the know say you've caught more fish on a baby torpedo than any human being on the planet, only because no one else fishes it as much as I do. And I mean, you showed off pictures last time I was on. It works. I mean, it's not just a gimmick. It is a fish catching machine. And it's probably my favorite way to catch a bass. It's an explosive bite, but you really talk them into eating it. I mean, you're working that bait, not just reeling it like a buzz bait. I feel like you have really pissed that fish off enough to make it bite. My wife used to say they don't like it farting over their head. It's like you get right over top of them and fart like, ha ha, bet you won't do nothing about that. Right?
Just hotboxing them. What else you got there, Charlie?
Oh, nothing that's that unique, but I remember when that was brand new.
Yep, the Magic Swimmer Kenyon Hill one kind of blew that out of the water in 2008 on Clark's Hill on blueback herring schooling fish, and then that bait became impossible to get. That's the Sebile Magic Swimmer.
And then how about a glow-in-the-dark chug bug?
I have never seen a glow-in-the-dark version, Charlie.
I got you again.
I didn't even know they made that. Oh, don't open that. That's a valuable bait right there.
I've got a couple open. They've been used.
I know Jim Morton, Oklahoma legend, worked with that and stuff, passed away recently here. Guck had a great post about him. But, oh, my gosh. That's an I'm a Rumba in the package. Fred Robanis still from his did he win on Clark's Hill as well?
Somewhere.
Victory, holding up the Elite Series trophy. Now, would you do the Fred Robanis modifications to the Rumba?
He taught me it. And man, even in the package, they've got the hooks rubber band together so they don't get cold. Isn't that cool?
Would you do this? You would do the screw lock with the plastic worm off of the back, and then you'd put it on the back hook hanger so it would look like the tail as you ran it through the water.
And Mans came out with a crawdad similar to my bass magnet.
Never seen that either.
Yeah. And it's
like a mix between a bass magnet and a LaRue mud bug.
Well, it wasn't a LaRue mud bug. That was the Arbor-Gas mud bug.
Arbor-Gas, I knew that.
That was my go-to, dude. That's how I got on these other backup baits. Mudbug came out with a realistic series where they had a crayfish painted on that mudbug that looked real. I mean, it was brown and gold and gorgeous, but the paint would chip off them real bad. But that was my bait, and the black one also. And I got so into it, I would drill little holes at the back of it and glue in two little curly tails to look like pinches.
No way!
Oh, yes, I did. I was so hooked on I mean, in our area, crayfish were one of the main forages, and we'd modify anything we could to look like a crayfish, because back then there were not a lot of crayfish imitations.
Champ Caldwell says he's waiting for the vampire spinnerbait to make an appearance. I don't know what the vampire spinnerbait is. I guess.
think that was a man's spinnerbait. I think that sounds like a man's. Look it up. That sounds like a man's. I think I recall it.
Man's vampire spinnerbait.
It's vampire spinnerbait because it might not be man's.
Let's see. Yeah, he said it was Mans and Hank Parker. I kind of want to see this thing now. Oh, I think I saw one. Holy smoke. Now I remember this thing. Yeah, now I remember this. That is a great call.
Oh.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah. That was a man's. I was right.
Yeah, now I remember it. And it literally,
it
that thing just spun.
Yeah.
Look at the marketing, though. You got the old Hank, the vampire with the V like that. The trailer came with it. Screw the dry rot. What dry rot? Let's throw plastic in there.
Good call. Whoever put that in there, good call. I hadn't thought of that in years.
Oh, yeah. I bet that was hot at ICAST in 1987. I bet there was a lineup of outdoor writers to write about that. When was the last time you went to ICAST, Charlie?
I've never been.
What?
Yeah, I knew you'd say that.
You were like a touring pro for decades, and you never in Vegas, never in Orlando. You've never been to ICAST.
Man, I always had a real job to make money.
You never had, was it Venom Lures that was like, hey, Charlie, you're our title pro. We sponsor you on the Elite Series. We're going to ICAST.
I don't think Venom Lures was ever at ICAST.
No?
The biggest thing that ever happened to Venom Lures is they wrapped my boat and I led that classic, and that was the first time they'd ever had a booth at the classic. And they were like ecstatic. Here we paid all this money for a booth at the classic and our pros in the lead. They couldn't have timed it. It couldn't have worked out any better for them.
Are they still around?
No, just recently done, closed, sold everything in the warehouse. The gentleman that owned it for years sold it to two young kids, and they didn't, they tried to do it as a part-time thing. And it's hard to be competitive in soft plastics. You know that. I
will say then that is one hell of a logo.
Oh no. And that's, I couldn't agree more. And the guy who owned the company, Dave Maurice, came up with all that stuff. He was really good at marketing. And he sponsored all the local tournaments, and he gave away a whole bunch of baits to kids. And he had a loyal following. They were one of the first places that had a whole variety of tubes. You could get tubes from 1.5 inch, 2 inch, bigger round tubes, smaller tubes, giant tubes, because tubes were really popular around here because of Lake Erie and such.
Yeah.
But we also called them inner tubes because they weren't very soft.
They were not the LaRue of, or they were not the Yamamoto of tubes.
Not at all. No. Or what was the first one? The Gets It. The Gets It.
Yeah, I remember that. All right. You got anything else? Or I know you got to get back to work. We've been doing this an hour. Like I said, it was ICAST week. We got a little bit of a different show. We're going to have Matt Steffen live from ICAST on Friday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. And then Frank on Thursday. So not really sure what we're doing tomorrow, but I definitely wanted to get you on to talk about some of the wild and wacky stuff.
The next 2 weeks I'll be at the Bass Open at Chesapeake Bay and at back-to-back at Waddington out of St. Lawrence. Our off days are a Tuesday on the first week. And our off days are Tuesday for Chesapeake, and our off day is Wednesday for St. Lawrence. So if you want to have me on for a 10-minute preview of how the tournament's going to be.
Works for me.
next Tuesday, and then the Wednesday after that. I'm so excited to go to Waddington. The place I stay there is, I'm not going to mention the name because I don't want it to ever have any other bass fishermen at it. But the place I stay there is not only great facility, good boat parking. You look out on the river, and it's got a 5-star restaurant with a piano bar and a back deck that you can still do. It's nice to come in off a day off the river and sit there and listen to the grand piano, and the food is unbelievable.
I've done that once, Charlie, where I went and was catching them during the day. It was one of those, I was there where it was like 19 hours of sunlight, right?
Right.
And I'm driving down the river, and it never even, I was so excited to get out there. I've got like 2 Red Bulls and 3 cans of dip. That's all that's in the boat. and I get to the point where I'm like, I'm really enjoying the day. I was by myself, but I could really use something to eat. And I pulled over on one of those restaurants that were right along the river, and I got there in between kind of lunch and dinner, so that 4:30-ish time. And I sat there and I had a cold one, and I had some fried yellow perch. And then I got back in my boat and caught another 4-pounder. And I was like, my God, it literally cannot get any better than this.
Being like a king. I got to tell a funny story about that restaurant. First time I went in there, I had no idea what I was walking into. I was way underdressed. Well, several years later, 2 of my biggest fans came to the weigh-in up there, and they're real rough around the edges. I mean, not very refined at all. And I go, I'm going to take you guys to dinner. So, I mean, their jaw drops as soon as we walk into the place, and they put us back on the back deck because they don't want us in there with the VIPs. And we ate like kings. Well, they came around with the dessert tray. And these 2 didn't understand that was the samples, and you just picked what you wanted. They reached right to the dessert tray and grabbed them. And I said, no, guys, just point to which one you want.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's fantastic.
It was fun. It was really fun.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get back to work. I greatly appreciate it. I always enjoy when I have you on, Charlie. And,
by the way, I'm still jealous of you. We haven't heard much about Alaska. I know you don't like bragging about your trips, but man, we'd love to hear more about Alaska. The pictures were unbelievable.
Yeah, it was.
And I hope did she enjoy it as much as you?
Oh, yeah. I'm to the stage in my life where like watching Court like enjoy something like is what makes it fulfilling for me. So like, yeah, like, we're there, we're catching the reds and stuff. And but like, she was like, you seemed like jittery, like more jittery than normal. And I was like, well, I just wanted to make sure that like you caught one. And then she got the hang of it, and it was just game on. And I mean, just as soon as one of those fish was on, she was not going to stop reeling until it was in the net or on the bank.
Right through the guides. You reel it right through the guides.
She actually sprained her ankle going up to a grayling hike. Didn't even say anything until we got back down. Thing is just swelled up. Ended up getting a compression sleeve, and she's never complained about it, refused to do it. We ended up getting her in waders down there, king salmon fishing at midnight on the summer solstice, all sorts of good stuff. So
that's a keeper. I've got to be a boat captain several times recently, and those kids go out of their way to thank me or offer me gas money. And my favorite line anymore is, "No, thank you. Some old fart took me fishing back in the day." Just like you said, a hyperactive kid. Can you imagine taking me fishing as a kid?
No, I can't.
Thank God those guys would do that, because I was out of control.
I can't. No, fortunately, we've had the opportunity to share a boat a couple times, and it's always been it's always been a good time.
Let's do it again.
Sounds good. Catch him up the next couple weeks, Charlie.
Thank you. Have a great life, Matt. I'll see you soon.
Thanks. That's the one and only Charlie Hartley. We'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up the show and talk about what we have going on for the rest of the week. BTL on a Tuesday with Charlie Hartley. We'll be back right after this on an iCast week.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
Gear that just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
As a professional angler, there's only one thing that connects you to your paycheck. Probably the most crucial part to tournament bass fishing. I use Sunline because they have a line for every application. Shooter, FX2, All Might, super light line, big stuff, big sticks. Sunline has you covered.
Sharp as can be. Super strong, super durable.
Really good penetration.
Thinner and stronger.
Catch fish after fish.
I want to make sure that I'm using the best stuff possible.
World's finest hook.
World's finest hook.
Gamakatsu. World's finest hook.
All right, welcome back. Always enjoy having the one and only Charlie Hartley on Bass Talk Live, talking about some of the things that we really looked forward to, the releases back in the day. And it'll be interesting to see if there is anything that any of the companies have been keeping under their hat at ICAST. Dave Rush from Best on Tour, who co-hosts the Best on Tour this week, presented by bestontour.net. It's a lot of Best on Tours there. But he is at ICAST. So we're looking to do a show on Friday morning. We're going to have Matt Steffen on, who's going to give his take on what he thought about Thursday at ICAST. And then Dave Rush, as soon as the doors open at ICAST on Friday, which means we may just move tomorrow, which is Wednesday's BTL show, to Friday. We still have Day 4 with Frank Scalish, but remember last Thursday, Frank said the entire family, minus Frankie, but the rest of the family, in-laws, dogs, cats, pets, kid, everything are at his house. So I have no idea how the old Thursday is gonna turn out with Frank Scalish, but that's neither here nor there. All right, that's all we got for today. Big shout out to Charlie Hartley. We'll talk to everyone later. See ya.